everyone. Thank you for attending this workshop. I'm Lawrence. I'm the secretary of the Game Development Club, and I'm joined here with Jordan.
Oh, I should probably say something. Hello.
So today we're going to be going over how to present your GitHub repository, and we're going to also be going into GitHub pages. And you're probably wondering what kind of qualifies us to do this. And to be completely honest, not much. But we did gather information from one of our alumni from this school, and we hope to share that with all of you guys. So just to get with the basics, I assume some of you guys have worked on a project on here, and it seems like most of you here are from a game project, but if you haven't yet, Git is basically a way of keeping track of your progress, or keeping track of different versions of your code, and then it tends to be used in a more collaborative manner. So GitHub is the server. I believe it's the server side of where you use it to collab, or to collab and share the code with other people. Every project is going to be under what's called a repository, and the repository is sort of the code, and then you could create branches of that repository, giving each person their own branch, so they can have their sort of their workspace to work with that code. So an example I like to give is something like one of my previous game projects. We play tanks. So here we have the main repository, and every repository will have what is considered the main branch, and then here you could go into different branches. So how I decided to do it is that I decided to split up the branches by people on my team, and there were some other extra branches that I made just as a backup. But so here we could go into one of my teammates' branches, Andrew. We could go into my branch, which was here, and and then you sort of after you get after everyone sort of works on their own branch, they sort of work together, or we sort of figure out who did what, and then you sort of just merge it all back into the main branch, and then that's sort of how you get your product. If you want more in-depth detail regarding how to do Git and GitHub, we have a pretty good detailed video on our channel, which I will send down here. It was made by our treasurer, and then what you could do with GitHub is that once you go on the actual once you actually make your account and go on the website, you could sort of use it as a portfolio to show what you have worked on, and you could sort of present it this will be the main page. And it's important to note that we actually spoke with one of the alumni we spoke with. He said that GitHub is sort of, it's not really the end all be all of whether you'll be hired or not. Recruiters mostly still look at your resume, but this is something that could help as a part of your portfolio. Jordan, do you want to add anything onto that?
I guess I could also add one thing about the branches that Larry mentioned, where each person has their own branch. That's not necessarily the only way to do things. Different projects, depending on how you choose to head your projects, could use branches in a different way. Another method that I've heard people do is every time they want to make a new feature, they will name the branch after that feature, and once it seems like it's ready for actual use, then they'll merge it into the main branch. So there's many different ways to go about it. I'll also be posting Nandan, he's one of the old vice presidents, his specific advice. I'll try to post a link to that in Meeting General if any of you are curious about reading that.
And so now you kind of let's say you have a few repos, or you've worked on someone else's repository and you want to sort of show it off onto your thing. This is actually something I didn't realize, because a lot of the projects that I've worked on, I've tend to have been in charge of the repo itself. But this is something that my roommate brought up with me. If you are if you're not the owner of the repo, it doesn't show up when you click on repositories. It won't show up under here because you don't own it. But how you can have it, if you did a lot of work for a repo, or you want something that you could show off, what you could do is that you go to overview here and then click here, customize your pins. When you click customize your pins, it shows all of the repos that you have worked on, or the ones that you own. So you can, like, let's see here, I have some projects from my 2600 class that I might want to show off or something. Or I have a game project that I worked on during my first semester. So you could click on these. So you can only show 6 at a time as your like top pin. So let's say we want to click on this one and then save. You're able to show it off right here, and then that's how you could sort of get other repos to be shown off and stuff like that.
Could I add something?
Yeah, sure.
If you choose not to pin any repositories specifically, GitHub will automatically try to choose from what your most popular repositories are, and those will be like the 6 that are going to be showing up first, or maybe it might be less than 6. I'm not quite sure what the methodology is, but just in case you're curious, that's how that works. And Larry may have mentioned this, but you can actually pin repos that you don't own on your own GitHub account, but that you have contributed to as well.
Yeah. And do you also want to go over forking?
Oh yeah, sure. So if you open up a repo, maybe try a repo that's not your own.
Oh, a repo that's not mine. All
right. You might be able to do it you might be able to show it in your own repo, but I'm pretty sure it has to be one that you don't own.
All right, let me.
It could be one of the. If you have a pin repository from a different one, maybe.
Let me it's probably another idea.
Yeah. So this will be interesting because you already have a fork.
Yeah.
But if you notice, this is the project that Larry worked on in fall of 2020, Cowboy Zelda. And if in the upper right-hand corner of the thing, you'll notice there's a fork button. If you click on that, GitHub automates this process where, well, he already made one, but if you click on this on the repo that you haven't forked before, GitHub there'll be a button here that basically says, oh, do you want to fork this repo? And then the way it works was it'll copy what's on the repo at that time, and then it'll put a copy of it on your own GitHub page. So you could even go into your own fork, I think, and so you could show off how it works.
Yeah, so I forked a version of Cowboy Zelda, I believe after I submitted it or something, just to see if I could play around with it some more. And then, yeah.
Something else I could add about forks as well. On the original repo, there's something called pull requests, where basically this is how GitHub handles, merging different branches together. And you could even do a pull request from your own fork, from a branch of your own fork. So maybe you want to try to contribute to a project that you don't own, but that you want to you have an idea for it or you want to fix something, you could go to that GitHub page and do a pull request that way.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And these two methods are pretty helpful for showing projects. I think both me and Jordan have mentioned it, sort of just showing off projects that you have worked on, but you don't specifically own the repo to. Next up, we want to kind of go over documentation, which is pretty important, especially for when you're working on a team. There's always like the classic be sure to comment your code and do other stuff like that. And then something that I've been finding myself doing more recently, especially as I attempt to apply to internships and stuff, is actually using the README and the about. So the about is sort of just like this little bio or an about me of what your project is about, sort of like what you've done. This is a game jam that I did in summer of 2021. So I kind of gave a description of who ran the game jam, what was the theme, how much time did I have, and what was the game based on. And then let me see if I could have a project that has a README. I think. So this is sort of a simple, very, very simple README from We Play Tanks. I just kind of wrote down when this project was made, and then if I go back and if I want to continue working on this project, or I could probably just do it. Like if I want to show this off to someone, I could probably go into it again and like continue or like elaborate, continue to elaborate on this readme. Anything you want to add, Jordan?
Oh yeah, in addition to readmes, every GitHub repo that you make will also have a wiki on it. I guess like I guess I could link one that I have. It's
Okay.
going to be in meeting gen. I don't know if you have my GitHub just on hand, but every repo does have a wiki. By default, it'll just have this welcome to the wiki thing, and then you can even add extra pages. For one example, I guess, is on the right side of the design document. If you click on that, essentially what I choose to use my wiki for in one of the projects I worked on in the previous semester was I created a design document that I submit to the game pitch, like as a part of my game pitch to the club, and I just kind of put it there so we have easy access to it. That's just a very specific example of what you could use wikis for. A lot of other GitHub pages I've seen use wikis as a way to document the program, show, oh, this is how it works, this is how you do this thing in this program, just generally how to use a program or specific, like maybe like quirks about it that you want to note, explanation as to how certain things are the way they are, stuff like that. So that's another, it's just one piece of the big puzzle of documentation. And I do think, or many people think that having a well-documented program makes it more appealing to users and whatnot.
Yeah, it really helps with like sort of like helping like other people who are trying to like learn from your code or like use your code specifically, just sort of like go through it. A lot of Python libraries like really help, like really benefit from having these things. And so next up, there's sort of like there's something else that like, you could use for this is less so about like presentation and more so like about your own like projects and stuff. There is something called the Git Ignore. The Git Ignore is a file that you use when you're creating the repo or something as you create the repo. It basically makes it so like that if you list a specific file or a type of file, like let's say .pdf or something, or if you want to block all Python files for some reason, .py, you can basically place it in the file called the Git Ignore. And I think I will open this up on my, because I don't think the Git Ignore shows up on the repo, so I will open this up on one of my personal projects. Give me a second, sorry.
Oh, actually, I did check. The Git Ignore does show up on the actual GitHub page.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's take a look at one of my projects. This is a Python bot that I've kind of worked on a bit called the alignment bot. And the thing about Python bots is that you need to make sure that each Python bot has something called a token, which is essentially what you use to like tell the code saying, oh, this code works with this bot account. But if that token becomes public, then anyone can really just override your bot, which is something that you don't really want to have. So this Git Ignore file, so I've created in the structure of how I've built my folders, which actually I could just probably stream here. All right, cool. So in how I've structured it here, there's the Py cache files, which I don't want to have to like keep committing that to GitHub if I don't want to. And then also there's also the ignore files. The ignore files is two different things. So I have first of all, you can see on my Git Ignore that I placed these two folders in here, which the system will just choose to ignore. And then within these files, I have a text file for the token. I'm not going to show what's in the token, obviously, but if you go, what you could do is that if you have like a sensitive thing, like a token or a password, what you could do is that when you go into like the main of like where you want it to work, you could basically set up the thing to be a variable called bot ID, and then just sort of you do a file read. You read into the file and then see what the token is, and then you give that to the variable, and then you place that into the token. Like in my case, I'll place it into a token just so my bot can actually function for Discord. And then another one here is like if you have, let's say your bot has special interactions, like my bot has a dictionary that that sort of basically what this bot does is that it takes user information. Actually, this readme is a lot better than, okay, sorry about that. What this bot does is that it takes user information, and then it takes a user's text history on Discord, and then sort of like looks for specific words, and then gives them sort of like a rating. I don't know if you guys have heard of like the D&D alignment chart, like chaotic evil or chaotic good, lawful evil, lawful good. It sort of gives them a rating based on their text history, and it's not perfect by any means, but how my bot works is that it runs on a dictionary that sort of has certain words on it. And I didn't want the dictionary to be public, mainly because there's some personal jokes on there, or there's some like names on there that I don't really want, that I don't think my friends would appreciate having out. So I just placed it on the Git Ignore file, and then so it doesn't continue to push that over to my public branch. Is there anything else you want to add about Git Ignore?
I guess I could also say one or two things. One other application I found that I use, or that could be useful for getting Git Ignore, is maybe you don't want to publish, like you make an executable like a .exe file and you don't want to include that. So what you could do is in your Git Ignore do like the little asterisk thing, or is it asterisk? The little star thing when you press Shift and 8. I don't know what the actual word for that is. .exe. That means any exe files that are in the repo are going to be ignored. So say if you do like you compile it and you run it, and you're like, okay, all of this looks good, I want to push it. That way you don't push the actual exe file. And another thing you can do with Git Ignore, you could actually do the opposite, where say you want to ignore everything there besides a specific file, and you could add the wildcard, the asterisk, to your Git Ignore, and then an exclamation point before any specific file name you want to include. I will post a Stack Overflow page that explains how to do that, because it might be hard to visualize just by me talking about it. And yeah, I think that's all I'd really like to add about Git Ignore.
Yeah, I want to show an example of what happens when you don't use Git Ignore. And what's nice about GitHub, especially with GitHub Desktop, you're able to create, there's actually presets for Git Ignores, like in case if you like don't know like what files you should be ignoring, like especially with game engines, there's a lot of like log files or like temporary files that are added and removed as soon as you open it, or especially with Unity, because Unity's like that. So you could like actually pick like, oh, I want this Unity file to be ignored. I want or like when you click Unity, it will give like a massive like list of files that you could just ignore. An example is, hold on, let me actually go into this up. So an example is like when me and Raymond were setting up for our current game Angle of Attack, we just auto-generated the Git Ignore file to ignore all, to be for specifically Unity. So it would ignore, it created this file which would ignore all of the following things that Unity would create, all the temporary files that Unity would create, so you don't have to keep doing it. And now an example of, I think in the first game that I officially led, which was Zombie Containment, I didn't understand this completely. So you can see here, Jenna commented on that actually. So every time you see a, every time you look at a, every time you like commit to Unity, you would see that there would just be like, sometimes we had like 3,000 like files that had like one thing changed, but it kept like showing up in the logs. And just because like I didn't understand how Git Ignored worked at the time, it sort of like led to a bunch of that issues. Let me actually see. Let's say this. But yeah, so like this where there's like 97 files changed. I did not change 97 files. It just happened to be that I forgot to include a Git Ignore, and then a bunch of these files, a bunch of these binary, like temporary files just happened to be changed. And it was just taking up a lot of like stuff, and like it's really something that you shouldn't have to worry about if you have the Git Ignore in place. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of like how to like present your repo and how to sort of like clean it up and make it more presentable. But let's say you want to show off some other things, like you want to show off some of like the actual games, or if you want to show, like if you're like me, you have like Blender files, or you have like an ArtStation you want to show off. It's kind of difficult to do that on a site that's primarily meant for like CS majors. And then I tried my best, like before I knew about GitHub pages, I tried my best to like include my other stuff. So like I have like here like my ArtStation link. It's not even like a clickable link. I just like put it in the bio, and then my other like website link, it leads to my itch.io page, which shows off the projects that I've worked on. So it's not exactly the most efficient method of like trying to show off your work. And what you could do is make your own personal website. Having a resume website sort of has like several benefits. Like if you have multiple stuff that you just kind of want to show off, you can show it off there. So like I could place like my art projects, my game projects, my other not gaming related projects. I could place like blogs or something. And it also, secondly, it shows off that you understand how to code, and like you know how to make your own website. So it kind of shows that you're more like fluent in you're more fluent in like different languages, especially since HTML and CSS are so different from traditional programming. An example, this is sort of like something that I have started. I did not. It's not that far into it, but it's just something like I started over winter break and then proceeded to procrastinate on. But yeah, and then what you could do to like make this to make the hosting easier, because hosting websites can be like either a bit pricey or like, yeah, it could be a bit pricey. GitHub has a system called GitHub Pages, which allows you to sort of share, like make a repo with your HTML files, and then you can upload it, whatever you commit it to and push it to GitHub, it will show up as you could have your own personal website link. So if you go to, let's say new, and then the repo name should be your username. So let's say Timothy M. Garcia .github.io. It will. So I won't be able to make it because I already have a page like this, but if you want to make your own website page, this is how you'll be able to do it. You can just type in this link, and then it will lead you to create your own website. And and I'll show you like what you will see once you actually make it. So let's say you have your thing here. It shows off like, it will show off like only like the main like HTML right here. And then if you go to settings, and then where is the pages? There's a new pages tab. And then if you go to right here, you could actually pick a theme, and then it will give you the HTML, all the HTML files to go along with that theme. So here's kind of like one theme that you could go with. You go here, or here. And it gives you a bunch of like options if you aren't sure of how you want to like create your website or something like that. And then you just click select theme. I think it's better if you do it from scratch, but if you're like unsure of how like this thing sort of works, or you just kind of want to play around with HTML, this is sort of like a really good like basis on like how to get started with it. And you can also you can actually create your own custom domain with the thing with GitHub Pages, and then believe it comes at, actually, so there's like more information about it here. And I could send this actually in the, oh wait, you already got it, my bad. Yeah, and then there's more information about that here, and then it sort of like goes into why, or like how to do that and all that, which I have not really played around with. And then yeah, Jordan, is there anything else you want to add before we start going into like examples?
No, that's pretty good. Actually, one thing I think we could talk about how easy it is. Anytime you make a change to your repo for your website, GitHub will automatically just take the changes you made and just publish them as soon as you push it to the main branch. You want to go into your GitHub?
Yeah, I can.
Repo? Oh, sorry, on GitHub itself.
Oh, on GitHub, like here.
The repo.
Oh, right. Sorry.
No worries. If you notice next to the commits, oh, that's odd. It's not showing up.
Right here.
When I was logged in, for some reason, it would show a check mark next to the commits, or I forget. Maybe it's only if you do it through the actual GitHub website. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I do remember when I was messing with this, it would tell me, okay, it's taking what's there and it's gonna publish it to GitHub.io. And when it actually went up, then there was a check mark next to it saying, okay, the change is now published. That might be only if you edit through the actual GitHub website, because I wasn't doing things locally. I was just doing everything through the website.
Yeah, we could test it out right now. I'll just put like and then save it, and then pray an employer doesn't see it. Hold on. There we go. Test. I'll just remove this later. But yeah, once you push it up, you sort of like give it like a minute or two, and then it will update itself. We could check that in a bit. Anything? Oh, sorry. Anything else you want to add, Jordan?
I think it's good. Maybe refresh the page, see if it shows up. Oh, I mean on the repo, it might log your changes there.
53. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, if you look at that little, I think a crown or something, yellow dot.
It's just a yellow dot.
Yeah, that's the status of how is the page refreshing. Once it's done, it'll turn to a green check mark, and then yeah, now you know, now it's up and live and all good.
Liar. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. I think yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that's yeah, once the thing goes green, we could check it out later. But we actually have a few websites from either alumni or other people actually within the industry that we can actually go to for reference. So first off, we're gonna start off with, and if you could send these links like while as I go through them, Jordan, that would be great.
Oh, sure thing.
So these two are hosted on. Actually, I'm not sure if the first one that we're showing is hosted on GitHub.io, but this is one of our Pomona alumni, Justin Galloway, and he currently works at Blizzard under the World of Warcraft team, and this is sort of like his website, and as you see here, he shows off like what he does work in. He works as a quest design intern, and then he does like all the quest design and like world population related stuff. And then he sort of gives down a breakdown of like what this internship taught him and all that. And then he actually provides several links for like different videos for what his quests what his quests have been, what are the quests he worked on. And then he also goes into it again with another set of things. And then it's sort of like he also shows off some of his personal projects that he's worked on, explaining like sort of his goals and stuff. And then this is kind of like where having a little bit of knowledge of UI design can come in. And this is something that you could kind of learn along the way. It really helps. Like sometimes, it really helps with UI design. Like he's able to like have like a nice background behind it, and then like I think this just might be my poor vision, but I think like if the font was a little bit bigger, that would help out a lot. I think, yeah, and then it just kind of like goes into that, and then it gives like a really neat breakdown of all of the projects that he's done and all of that. And then it also includes a link to his GitHub repo, which we could stalk right here. And he hasn't, I assume he's probably working on like private stuff or something like that. So like we don't really see any of the more recent projects. But yeah, and it also provides a link to his resume. So you can kind of see like what he's done here in Pomona and how he's worked on stuff. And another website of one of the alumni that you may have seen actually talk more in the server, Nandan, is actually the one that we went to for a lot of this information. He has his own website right here, and this one's actually hosted on the GitHub IO service or the GitHub Pages service. So you can sort of scroll down. He gives like a brief like introduction for himself, kind of some hobbies, an interest that he has. He's a League player. That tells a lot about a person, and you could sort of you could also check out his resume and stuff, which he'll have here in a PDF file. A lot of these ones you should also keep in mind to include your actual resume, but be careful like when you're going through someone or when you're uploading your resume, because sometimes I've seen some resume samples and they're just like, oh, have your address here. But like, you know, of course, if you're uploading your resume to a public website, don't place your address there. And then there's like different, he has different testimonials from like people he's worked with and sort of like their credibility, which is actually pretty cool. And this is like kind of, this part is sort of like where personal connections in college kind of help out. So like if someone you know works at Amazon, like tell them, like record them on camera and tell them to say a really nice thing about you, like a really cool like thumbs up, and then and then you could put down a quote on your website. That's pretty much a lesson for today. And he actually has a nice like footer that has like different information, like his LinkedIn. Click on that, my bad. His LinkedIn, his GitHub, his email, and then a little copyright thingy-madoodle down here. And then another one who isn't really he isn't a alumni, but he is an alumni from Pomona, but he is a level designer at certain companies. Ryan R. Burns. Here he has this guy has a lot more experience with the industry, so he has a lot more projects that he has listed. Here he has his main stuff that he's actually worked on, and then he also has some personal projects. What I find interesting and what makes him like stand out a lot is that because he's a level designer, he wants to go more in depth with his stuff. But he doesn't just post like a Unity project that he's done. He actually goes into, with this one, this is where like I found really interesting. He goes into like one of like the areas in the game Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. He actually does an analysis of like how the architecture and like the level design of the area works, and then he tries to recreate it in another engine just to see like if he could replicate the idea, and like he sort of does a breakdown of it like by recreating it himself just to see how it works, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, so you can see here that like he'll actually like draw out stuff and then I assume scan it into image file, and then like you could, if you click on it, you could go more in depth, and then he sort of just like goes through like his like how he thinks the level is, how he thinks like the reasoning for the level being designed that way. Actually also has like different like animations and stuff to show like what he thinks about it, and then sort of like he even goes into like color theory and all that, which is like all super cool stuff, especially for someone in his industry. And then again, he also has the cover, not the cover letter, he also has like the PDF or of his resume on here. And this is sort of like, this is something that I've kind of been trying to base, like if I try to look for sample resume, I actually like went through and like kind of looked through his. He came from, oh wow, yeah. So that's sort of like what he's been doing. And then finally, we have one on the more simpler end. It kind of shows that like the websites don't have to be like as fancy or as complicated as like these three have done it. Alex Forsythe. So here he has a bunch of like personal project, or here he has 2 personal projects, and then here he has all of the commercial projects that he's worked on, like in like the actual industry, and then he has a few like unreleased work. So it's sort of just like describing like what he's working on at the moment and what he hasn't like really been into. Yeah. And then he also mentioned some college stuff. It's just to show that he has been active even in his college career, and he has like some nice hobbies, and he even like takes pictures of his dog and stuff. Is there anything you want to add, Jordan?
I think we're good. Thanks for showing all that off.
Yeah, and yeah, that's basically that's basically it for the workshop. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in questions and concerns. I know who is it? Like Nandan, as you can see here, it's like, yeah, Nandan. I think his name is Professor W, but he also like his nickname on the server is Nandan. He tends to reply to any like interview or job application related thing, and he gives like amazing advice. I remember I was asking like if someone could break down my give me advice on my resume for me, and then I sent it to him. He gave very constructive feedback, and it was like super helpful, and it sort of like helped me out on like where I should take like my resume and all of that stuff. Yeah, very very nice guy. And then yeah, if you have any questions, just like ask like any questions about like jobs or like interviews and stuff. Asking questions and concerns. We have a very like good alumni program. Or like we have a lot of alumni in the server, and I'm sure a lot of them would love to help out or answer questions and all of that stuff. That's pretty much the workshop. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and I hope you guys have a good day.